Take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Kim. Appreciate the introduction. For those of you that have seen some of the Windows 10 demos, hopefully we'll show you a couple things that maybe you haven't seen yet. For those of you that haven't seen any of the Windows 10 demos yet, this is going to be mostly demos, so you're going to see my slide deck is going to be very brief. So just as Kim was saying, I've got 20 years in the industry, going back to good old DOS 2.2 if you want to go way back in the world. All the way through Windows for Workgroups, where you had to have Disk 6 available to you anytime you're going to try to do any networking. Those of you that lived through that era know what I'm talking about. I did actually install Windows Me very briefly. I think it was a month that we used that one time, and I did have Vista on a machine at one point in time too. So obviously there has been some great high points and some low points, but I think the current Windows that they've got right now, they really hit it well. And part of the reason that they've hit it so well is that they had the Insiders program that I will show you how to join the Insiders program later in this presentation, just because I think it's important for you to know that you can be part of the voice of people telling Microsoft how to improve the product. And that's really how it's kind of growing into what it is right now. I've been using Windows 10 for a little over 2 years now. So I joined the Windows Insider program early, and you know, it was rough at first, but it always is. And you know, you just use it on a VM, and you put a VM out there and you test it, and you poke around in a little bit and make sure that things work the way you want it to work. You install apps, and then you give Microsoft feedback on it. And I will say that I'm sure my feedback alone wasn't enough to sway them, but I'm sure other people found very similar things that I found along the way as I was testing it, that made a big difference in how the product was deployed. And even from the time it was deployed in July of last year, on July 29th, to the November release, there have been some significant changes, and some of those I'm actually going to show you today. This is a live workstation. This is not a demo machine. This is my workstation, and I use it daily. So you're going to see things on it that are just what a regular person's going to see on their machine. So as you can see, my slides are going to be pretty sparse. We're going to demo. So if you don't mind, let's just pack right out of this and show you the desktop. So this is the Windows 10 desktop. Shouldn't look tremendously different from what you're normally used to seeing. Some of the things that they've kind of added, you'll see the Cortana down here, which is nice. This is kind of a new piece down there. I'm just going to kind of point out some of the new pieces that are on the desktop. So this task view, which is really kind of similar to what those of us that remember the Alt Tab, you know, you use Alt Tab and you switch between apps. It's very similar in how that is kind of used there. And you have your apps down here in your taskbar that are normal. Notification tray is still the same notification tray that's out there. And then these items down here in the corner are some new, some are about the same. You know, you get your battery, your network connection, your sound. Depending on what you want to put down there, you can obviously customize that. But this piece right here is the next new real thing down here that they've changed to. Different from in the Windows 8 world, where you kind of hover to the edges of the corners and you'd see that little menu pop out. And if you're in tablet mode, people really were frustrated by that because they were trying to decide if they should swipe in or if they should move their finger to the corner, if that would do it. So all those kind of went away, and they went to this now instead. And this right here brings up that same kind of concept. It's called the Action Center, and that really is where you spend your time in. And the nice thing about that is it's no different if it's in the tablet mode or if it's in the desktop mode like this. So because it's that button is kind of big enough for your finger to touch it anyway. So that's kind of nice that they've taken the feedback from the users and said that would be nice to have. And then they've also added a bunch of things here, even since July, in the November release, pieces that are in this area down here that just are the common things you'd go see. And I'll talk about those as well. So that's kind of the desktop experience look. The biggest thing that people are going to say they're going to love, and they're going to say this is what I wanted, is the start menu. So the start menu, while it was kind of there before, it wasn't really as functional as it is now. So with the Windows 10 and then with the Windows 10 November update even, they've even changed a few things there where before you kind of had this size that was the size you have. Well, now you have this ability to even stretch that, make it go wider. If your screen is even wider, you could pull it wider than this. Mine can't go any wider than this, so that's as far as I can go. You can always adjust these icons just by moving them around, and that's the whole point of it. And you can right-click on them and size them if you wanted to. You have a few sizes, and it depends on what was built for the icon. You can do a couple other things to it. You can turn off the live tile, pin to the taskbar, uninstall from there, unpin it from this, start from here. So you have all the functionality you'd expect to have in either a right click or your press and hold. Works the same. So those tiles are nice. Again, some people don't like those tiles. They like this part of the start menu. They like this thing where you click on the start and it brings up my menu of stuff. So if you're not looking at this, you can even turn that off if you want entirely. But this gives you things that I've now pinned in the most used area here, obviously. But then I have this new thing that's called All Apps, and that was one of the pieces that people really thought that was the deal. They really wanted that piece, and I don't blame folks for wanting that back, because that was really kind of a nice function. They've made it a little different in how Windows 7 was, but similar enough that people that have used Windows 7 only won't really get freaked out by this new look, because it's very similar. It's intuitive enough, and people look at this and say, I think I can do that. And just like if you've used any phone apps, because they're trying to make things more like phone apps, because the user experience in both the phone app and the desktop should be similar, right? People should expect certain things. You'd expect if you click on the letter that it would jump out to the whole thing and I could go pull from the letters, and that's what it does. So, and just like on your phone, if you're touching your phone, that's a very quick way to get to that. You know, let's say I want to get down to the S's. Well, the quick way to get there is just touch a letter and get down to the S's. Obviously, you can tap S or type in the area down here what you're looking for. Like, you know, if you're looking for IE, well, there it is. It's Internet Explorer. So that's the same as you'd expect. You know, some sort of a search that gives you that same functionality. So how Cortana and the Start menu work together, that is one piece that is, I think, critical to the Microsoft model in Windows 10 to get people to use this thing and use it how they expect to use it. So that's just the standard on the Start menu. And for those that were in Windows 8 and 8.1, they've also learned that the right-click on that menu gives you some very cool things as well. So the right-click brings you to some things that are a little bit more, you know, what you'd expect on some of the older menus. Like you have your Run button here, you have Command Prompt as admin, Command Prompt. You have your standard control panel, which is still the same. So if anyone's wondering, it's still control panel. And if you still hit the twisty on the side over here, it brings up all control panels. So that is the same. It's intentionally the same. So this right-click menu is still a piece out there. Some things they've added to it that weren't there before. Some of the task manager was there. System obviously was there before. It's called computer in different versions. But event viewer is right out here, which is kind of nice, especially if you're having issues that you want to track down. You can just pop it right from here. One that probably people most often use, and they put it up near the top, is programs and features. So instead of having to go to control panel and then find programs and features, they know that you're going to use that frequently enough. Well, they just put it in here, so you can just go ahead and grab it and get to it right there. So it's really very much the same. So they're trying to keep the Windows 7 user how they were using it in the old days, and how, you know, the modern user might be using it current days. So it gives you a little flexibility, a little both, which is nice. Search is right in here, but that search obviously is the same as Cortana. You can pull from there as well. So those are some of the basics then. All right, so now I'm going to go across to the right. So we'll go ahead left to right here. So in the task view, this is like the Alt-Tab concept, and you have, here's the things that I have open, and any one of these things I could tell it to snap left, snap right, and there are shortcut keys to that too, by the way. Or I could move it to a different desktop. Now, right now I don't have another desktop out there. I can make one. And I intentionally left my desktop as it is, as I would normally use it. Normally, I would say in a normal demonstration where I wasn't demonstrating Windows 10, I would actually have a separate desktop and have that desktop be a clean desktop. So I could just say, let's just go down here and make a new desktop, and desktop 2 is going to have nothing on it. If I wanted to go to desktop 2, hold on. So it's now, I can't see my other desktop on my other screen. And this is one of the reasons why demonstrating the multiple desktop is kind of tough, because it's on my second screen, so you can't actually see it. So, but in a normal situation where you can actually demonstrate for other people, you might want to have a separate desktop that's totally clean, that doesn't have anything else on it, so that way you can kind of keep all the rest of that clutter off there. For me, I wanted to make sure you saw kind of how the icons sit and how everything looks. That was my point. So with this same desktop, now I have two desktops out there. I only had one to begin with. If I wanted to shift this, for instance, to move to desktop 2, I could move that to desktop 2, so then when I go to desktop 2, it's sitting there, so you see that it's active in my desktop 2. And I just bring it forward. And if I want to flip back to the other desktop, I can just kick back to desktop 1, which has just got my PowerPoint and the GoToMeeting that we're on active, along with a couple other things that I still had active from before. But that's the functionality that you get out of the multiple desktops. So if you look at desktop 2, or if I want to go move something back from desktop 2, I can move it back to desktop 1 or whatever it happens to be. And if I use my desktops as actual physical desktops, I could move them from screen to screen as well. So again, this is what's active on desktop 1. If I just hover over it, and I'm not clicking, just hover over it, you can see what's active on 2. Well, there's nothing there right now. So the snapping functionality is there. So if I decided, we're just going to go ahead and bring this up. If I decide to snap this to one side, and this is very similar to what you've got, you can kind of see if I snap it to a corner, it goes to a quadrant, and you can kind of see the hovering of it. If I'm going to the right side, it's going to snap to the whole side, but then it's going to ask me, what do you want to fill the other side by default? And that's kind of a nice little add-on that they put in place there. And so if I grab and move that thing, it's going to go move out at whatever the full size it was. And if I move that off there, it's going to move back to the full size it was. And I can go shift those to the corners and so on. So that's kind of the nice thing about the desktop view that they're giving you. And again, it's very similar to, and you're not going to see me do it, but I'm going to tell you I'm doing this. If you do Alt-Tab, that still is a function that's out there. It's just saying all my apps that are open in a slightly different way of getting to that same functionality. And that's just assuming that you're all on the same desktop there. And the Alt-Tab only rolls through the desktop you're in there. So that's the task view that they kind of give you, and that's a nice little function. It's a great tool if you're going to especially do demonstrations where you're not demonstrating the OS. So, all right, and I'm going to move across the bottom here. These are all pretty much the same as you're used to. The Action Center is the next place. Now, I don't have a bunch of notifications showing up here. People can control their notifications, and some you'll see online complain about too much notifications. You have total control over that, and I'll show you where you can adjust that, but you can turn off as much of that notification as you want. And when I say notifications, it's the thing that pops up in the lower right-hand corner or wherever you tell it to pop up, but normally pops up in the lower right-hand corner, and it shows you, it's an email comes in, a text message that's going to come in on your phone, that kind of thing. So you can turn that off if you wanted to. But in this Action Center, that's what you'll see. These notifications will pile up here. You could have your email send notifications there, etc. But this space right here is what has changed a little bit, even from July. Things that they've added since July is they've added this button project, because what people were finding is that it was too hard to get to the projector screen. So if you wanted to project and you wanted to tell it to duplicate screens, extend screens, second screens, whatever you want to do, connect to a wireless, that was just too hard before. You had to go through a couple too many steps. Well, if you're sitting in front of a projector and you're about ready to get going on a presentation, you kind of want to do that quickly. So people, kind of suggested, hey, could you put it someplace where it's a little simpler, up a level somewhere that you can get to it, and that's what they did. So Microsoft added this button here in the November update, and then now is available to you at this point. You could still get to it if you were going to go through the all settings and devices and then projector. I mean, that still is there, and that functionality still exists, but that's how they made it a little easier. So again, I was in the Action Center. This all settings right here, and this is again where people look at it and say, I really don't like the new settings. Well, if you don't like using this, some of them you have to kind of run through here, but you can always still get to the old control panel if you wanted to. Just right click on that and bring up control panel, so that those things still aren't gone, but you are going to have to do some things in the new settings kind of a window. And as you can see, as I hover over them, the buttons are pretty big, and the reason it's that way is because it's also, I'm on a 2-in-1, I'm on a Surface Pro 3. So it's assuming that you might also be using this as a touchscreen device. So they make it so that it's big enough, the buttons are, so you can touch the right thing without having to worry about hitting the wrong button all the darn time. So we'll just go look into the personalization. So this is some of the things that they've added. Now they kind of give you a good look at how the background looks, and you pick your pictures. This is the same as any old Windows. You can figure that out pretty quickly. And that's the same sort of thing, right? You got your color control. The lock screen is one of the newer cool things they've got, and you can have a rolling pictures. You can have, you can pick, a slideshow of your own, a single picture if you like. And then this is the other piece right here that you can choose an app to show detail status. So on my screen when I lock it, now you can't see if I lock it because you won't be able to see my presentation, but mine also throws a calendar item. What's my next calendar item up down here, because I have this app that shows my detailed status calendar. So you could pick something else if you wanted to put into that space, and obviously don't do too much because it takes up too much of your screen, but it's kind of nice that you can add that piece to it. And then when your screen goes to lock, that's the last thing you see when you walk away from your machine as you lock it as you walk away. Now that's speaking from an IT person. You always lock your screen when you walk away, right? And then you have the ability in your timeout settings to do what you want to do. You can actually do the standard themes, and the themes are all pretty much the same as they always are. The start menu does give you a little bit more control now than it did with the Windows 8, where you can show more tiles, and that was where you can just turn that off. Mine, I have it show more because I think I like that. Occasionally shows suggestions in the start. In other words, it just gives you a highlight on an app that you maybe most recently added, which is here. New apps, most used apps. That's the one I like that on the top line. You can turn all that stuff on or off. I don't have mine turned on for using the full start screen. I kind of like the hybrid of my start menu with my apps on one side and then my tiles over here, just because that's the way I like it. But you have control. That's the nice thing, is you have control. It used to be where you had to kind of work a little bit harder to get that control. Not so anymore with Windows 10. All right, so that's some of the personalization. Let's just go back out of there. System notifications, this is where you can change your display, and you do have some control over the display, and it's not tremendously different than what it was on Windows 8 and 8.1, better on 8.1 obviously. But here's the notifications and actions, and this is the piece I was talking about. You have control over each of these items, and you can drill in each one of them as well. So on my calendar, you have banner, sounds, mail. I just have the mail, just give me a notification. And then you have Office, clicks on that, and then OneDrive, Outlook. I mean, I have control over all those pieces right there. All right, so under apps, again, you have similar control there as well. And here I'm talking about, I can either move, uninstall, I can change how this app reads, and then, as you can see, that these are all the ways you can control your environment, which is a huge change from where we were before. And the Power and Sleep has been updated a little bit as well. That was kind of weak at first when they first came up. They've changed several things, and it's tremendously improved. So I'm going to click on this offline maps. I just want to tell you about it. And this is an app that I think this is a big deal. And this piece right here is one that's I think a change that makes a difference for people, especially when they're used to just using it on their cell phone. I mean, there are many times when you end up traveling and you need to use your PC, but you don't really want to have to go pay for the Wi-Fi briefly for the 5 minutes you got to get your map to find out where you're going to be going. So you actually can download the maps, and the maps are now downloaded to a point, and those are offline. So, and I'll bring up the map app. And this is the Microsoft Maps app that's on there, and this is a downloaded app. Now this is where I'm at right now, so this is my location. So I do have the location turned on, but you could actually do nav right from here. And because I downloaded this map, I wouldn't have to be online to actually get the detail, and it would actually find my way, which is a big step ahead from where they used to be. So it's kind of like if you think of your phone didn't have to have data or GPS on to get you where you got to go. So obviously it's not going to give you the turn-by-turn once you're driving, but being that you're disconnected, you have the map, you have the steps where you're supposed to go, and you'll be able to see all that. So, all right. Some of the default apps that are set up for that, you have the same control over that. You can tell which app you're going to use as your, as your map app, as your email app, etc. So those are all still controllable on this PC. So, all right. So I will talk briefly about the accounts. We'll get that picture right off there quick for you. You're actually able to use your domain account, obviously, and you can have multiple accounts added on here. The one thing that I've found that I still would like to see different and a little bit improved is I have my personal account and I have my work account on this machine, and the syncing between your personal account and like, for instance, like your phone, if you plug your phone, my phone happens to be on my personal side account for my Microsoft Live, but I have my email connected to the company. There isn't a nice way of handling the way the settings go back and forth. They flow between your phone on your personal devices and your work device yet. So that may still be an improvement. I think I've seen several folks wanting to see that, be able to let you have multiple Microsoft Live accounts be kind of added to your PC. You can add them and use different apps, obviously, as I've added them here. But it's not quite the same as being able to like sync settings, and I'll show you the sync settings in just a second here. But the sync settings would allow you to let some of those apps talk across your two different platforms and across your two different logins with Microsoft Live. So the merging of those accounts are still something that could be improved a little bit. The sync settings, this is one of the pieces that we tend to use quite a bit with our users, and I'm on the IT side of things, especially because what happens with the user is as they're moving on from one workstation to another. Let's say today they have a Dell, tomorrow they're going to move into a Surface. If they've synced their settings, it's a pretty painless operation to go from one machine to the next. You sync your settings up there. You're logged in with your Windows Live account. In this case, this one is syncing to my interdam.pmi account, and it's going to sync whatever settings you want it to sync. You don't have to sync everything, but most people want to have their Internet Explorer settings, their themes, potentially their passwords and language preferences, probably. Other Windows settings I turn on. The cutover is much quicker when you've actually synced your settings from one machine to the next, because really you go back, log into the other machine, you sync your settings on the other machine, and as soon as you do it, you'll start seeing all of your favorites fill into your Internet Explorer. If you're using like Chrome or any of the other browsers, you'll see those things fill in there nicely. It's very slick, as a matter of fact. So it saves you a little bit of time when it comes down to it. I think that's probably enough. I mean, the update and security is pretty similar to what you're going to do. Recovery and backup is there the same as it was there, so I'm going to back out of here and come back to this notification center. So other pieces you'll see that are in here, the quick airplane mode is there. It turns off your Wi-Fi. You could probably do it yourself just as easily, but you know, it's a quick function if you want to just, especially if you're in tablet mode, you can pop it up and tap it, and it's pretty much done. Turn your location on or off at this point. Sometimes you want that. Quiet hours is an interesting little setup, and that came in with Windows 8, I believe, when they first started putting that in. So you can set your hours when you want notifications to actually come in to your PC, and if you've synced it with your phone, you can have the two of those run the same quiet hours, and that way you wouldn't get those notifications in those hours where you have listed as your quiet hours. So nice little feature that they've kind of added in here as well. All right, so let's just take it down to Cortana now, because that was the last piece I didn't really spend a whole lot of time in here. So the Cortana thing, we're not going to do a speak to it, but that is an option, obviously. But you can see this is pulling off my personal calendar here. My wife's leaving to Green Bay today, so she's going to spend some time with my daughter. Great. Trump is leading the polls. I'm not sure why I pulled that, but I'm guessing it's, you know, it's one of the big deals. Since I'm right now currently in the St. Paul area, you're seeing things that are news from our local area, and those settings are driven from what you're going to tell Cortana about your information that you wanted to share with Cortana. So you can edit your favorites, you can change your name. You know, this is the place where you can adjust the Cortana settings, and each one of these areas right here you can adjust, and those are all areas where you can tell it to give you more information about whatever it happens to be. So if you clicked into news, you could tell it, I want this, I want local news, I want headline news, I want recommended stories. So those are the things that you can control as to what Cortana is going to show you in that area. And you can even add more things if you really wanted to. So all that I can just change and control right from here. Now obviously you can talk to it too if you want. You know, it's cool, but really when it comes down to it, the functional part of it is when I'm dealing with this home in Cortana, what else is going on in my world quickly. So just quick access to it. And again, it's scrollable just like you'd expect. So yeah, believe it or not, it's 30 here today. So. All right, and Cortana is nice because I'm just gonna go bring it to something else. Okay, now she just picked up my voice because I accidentally clicked it when I went across her. I wasn't trying to, but you can see that she picked up my voice there. And I'm gonna just show you the browsers, and the reason why I show you this is because it's linked into Cortana. So if I bring up our Interdyne BMI, and if I just hover across a word, I can also see that it's now linked into Cortana, which is nice because if I click on Ask Cortana, you'll see that same concept of what you saw in the Cortana screen down here pull up over here. And not every app is linked into the Cortana search as this is, but it is nice inside of Edge, and I'll talk about Edge in just a bit here as well. But it's kind of nice, so if you want to look at that, that's one thing. So if I instead, bring up Interdyne BMI, let's just pull the whole thing here. You can see, highlight whatever text you got there, and then ask Cortana on it. All right, so now because this has a phone number to it, and I've got phone integrated with my PC with Skype, I could actually call the number right there, or I click the call button, either one. Or I could get directions to it because again, Cortana is tied into this mapping application that we just saw before. So all those pieces kind of go together, and you can get more information about this because it just pulls off of anything that's associated with Interdyne BMI, because that's what I search for. And Cortana is looking across Twitter feeds, it's looking across LinkedIn, it's looking across anything that would normally be out there by a company like that. Now, of course, you can pin that out there and see all that all the time, but the point is that it's kind of taking people to a new level of integrating your data and your data requests out there. So since I'm in Edge right now, this is one of the browsers that's available on Windows 10. It's not the only browser, and at WPC last year in the summer, it was very clear that they were making it very clear to everybody that Edge is one of your browser options. IE 11 is going forward as far as they're planning. They have no end of life on it, that at least as of last summer they didn't. So to my knowledge, there's still no end of life on it yet because it's still part of the OS. So let's just talk about Edge. We'll just get around to Edge here first. So you can see this is the general look. Hold on. This is the general look of it here. Let me minimize so you don't see two up there. And it's very similar, to if you ask me, it's similar to like Chrome in terms of how it looks like. It keeps this button set very similar or simple up top. You have your back and forwards, you have your refresh, and you have a home button. And again, you can customize what you even show up there. You don't have to even show that if you didn't want. Address bar, search bar, both the same. They act the same. If I were to bring open a new page, it by default brings open a new page with really nothing else in it except for some news feeds out there, like similar to what you might see in like if you think about Cortana as a expanded view. But again, you can hide all this stuff if you want. You don't have to show up by default if you want. You can go to a blank page if you'd like. So across the top, there are some more stuff. So you can type the address or a search right here, and it's going to search across whatever you have set for your search engine. And it can be Bing, it can be Google, it can be whatever you're looking for. The quick links are down there, very similar to. And again, I've customized that I added that on that. By default, you don't have to have that on there if you don't want. And you can see the rest of your quick links on that same page there. What you see on the right-hand side over here now are some new things that you haven't seen. A little bit different than how it is in IE, but you have the favorites and recent reading list, recent sites like your history and your downloads is all kind of done right in this spot, which is, I think it's a little bit handier because it's all kind of together in one spot, which is kind of nice. It's, and again, it's very touchable. The button's big enough, and these buttons are all big enough, and you can just go pull from here, and it's quick to get to where you got to go. Now, I don't have any of my my RSS feeds here right now. I think I turned them off recently. But again, all your history and your downloads, so all the things that you'd expect to see are kind of right there in one spot, so you don't have to click all around to get it. You know, in IE, you kind of got to go down and pull buttons down. Not so here, so that's kind of nice. All right, so let's go back to my page. So what you see here now, this is something new and different, is you can do this new thing called make a web note, and this web note is kind of a OneNote overlay on top of a page. Now, I could draw this with my finger on the screen, or I can use my mouse. And you know, if you're looking at certain things right here, you might want to, you know, point out, hey, there's this. Not all that useful here, except I'll say this though, is what if you were going to go down the path of, let me just turn this off. I'm going to go down the path of, take a look at our office locations, and I wanted to, let's say I'm a web developer for Internet BMI, which I'm not, but if I wanted to, I could go here, and then I could make notes on this screen here, and then save those notes to somebody else, and say, you know, it looks like this spot right here, you know, is, you know, needs something, and you know, the left justifying is not right, or something. You can make your notes on this, and then you'd send that to somebody else, and you can either save it here at this point. So as you hover over it, says save a web note. You could cut that screen right here if you wanted to. So you clip the whole screen right here, and that would just pick the whole screen. You could put comments on it, so you could type in notes if you really wanted to. So I could type in a note, you know, looks like the font is wrong. Right, so you could put your notes in there, and then all those notes, kind of that extra stuff that lays around the top of a web page that you're kind of giving notes to somebody else, could be then shared with somebody. And in the share, again, I could go ahead and share it via email. I could share it there in OneNote. I mean, I could send it in a bunch of different ways to somebody else. And that gives me the ability then to do a little more collaboration on a browser, and that's part of Edge. So they've kind of modernized it a little bit. They've added some functionality that, you know, wasn't there before, and obviously none of that stuff is really on this page. It was just in that overlay that I built. And if I save that overlay, it just goes with this page to the person who's the recipient. Kind of a nifty way to collaborate, though. All right, and you saw the share point there. And so here's where the settings are that you would have seen and you would have expected. So here's where I can build all my pieces in the settings here. So I can click into settings and change how I want it to behave. And I'm syncing my content right now, so that way in case I go to a different device that uses the same Windows Live ID, it would have the same settings across. And then the advanced settings, as you'd expect, are very similar to what you would see in your IE, where you can turn off tracking, turn off Cortana. You can turn. I mean, you have plenty of functionality here as well. And it's very similar to what you would expect to see in a browser. All right, so that's Edge. And as you can see, IE is still IE. Really doesn't look any different. And for those of you that have been using IE for quite some time, you'll know that your tools has got internet options, and this is the same. This is IE 11. There's nothing fancy, nothing different about it. So, but the point is that you have both browser options. I'll tell you right now, as just a hint, when you first bring up your profile for the first time, that you first start using Windows 10, IE will not be in your base of your task pane down here. So you'll have the store, you'll have Edge, and you'll have this folder group, which we're going to show you in just a bit. But those pieces right there, what the defaults are. So if you just want to get IE in there, you just type in your search, and you'll search for IE, and you want in the My Stuff, which is My Stuff. You can obviously search the web if you wanted to, but that's what you're looking for. Now, it also realizes that you might also be looking for something that's similar, so it gives you another match. But IE is Internet Explorer, or you could type in Internet Explorer if you wanted to type a bunch of letters. But that's how you get to it quick, and then right-click on it, pin it to the start right away, or pin it to, mine's already in my taskbar, so I don't have to pin it there. So if I unpin it, it would take it off there. But then I would just say pin to the taskbar, and then I have it down here by default. So that's how you get IE back. If you want to have it, you know, readily available to yourself, which I like both. I really do. I've used a little of both, and again, you can set one to be your default browser just like you can with Google Chrome. So, and there is actually a plugin for Cortana into Google Chrome. So if you're looking for that as well, so that functionality is built into Chrome. So the Microsoft way is less of what they had been in the previous years where they keep it kind of pretty much in their own camp. They're more about crossing the boundary and working in the iOS space, in the Android space. So, and that, in my opinion, is a very good thing. So, all right, so let's go to the folders. We just talked about that briefly. I'm going to come back to the Insider program because that is definitely an important piece here of our discussion. So what you'll see here isn't dramatically different, except for the fact that up on top up here is you see the frequent folders, and you see your recent files right in that same window. Now I'm just going to roll them up, but just because I want to show you the stuff on the left-hand side. Left-hand side looks pretty much the same as left-hand side's always done. You'll see a couple cloud options that you have out there. For instance, OneDrive is obviously one of the things you're going to probably be using if you've logged in with your account, and that makes good sense to go put stuff out there. Like I have another cloud, ShareSync is another cloud I've got out there, so that's my ShareSync folders, and that's active, and I can pin that into my quick access. So just like I have those up there, I could say, well, I want this in my quick access. So I could go ahead and just say pin to my quick access, and it's just going to be up there. So if you want to build this, this is kind of like the idea of the favorites, right? So those are the ones I want up there, and I want them available. They don't have to be just physicals like they used to always have to be physical drives that you can get to, or a mapped logical drive. Now it's just, if you've got a location you're going to, you pin it to your quick access, and it's going to be up there. It's kind of nice. And to unpin it, you can just right-click on it and unpin it. So it's just as you would expect. It's pretty simple to get around. Again, the nice thing that they've added to this is the recent files and frequent folders. The frequent folders obviously gets built over time as you're hitting them, but that used to kind of be stuck in the left-hand side, and that left-hand side just got to be too big almost, it seemed. And now this is a lot more functional, and it's a lot more functional, especially in the touch world. If you're in a you're going to touch your screen and you're going to use your keyboard and mouse and touch your screen at the same time, those are all kind of out there in front of you, which is kind of nice. So, and as far as the recent files goes, this is another very important one here. So on my taskbar down below, I got my Excel, I got my Word. If I right-click that, I actually get that recent files for that application right there without having to drill into the application itself first. And I can just open it by itself if I wanted to as well. But the nice thing is I don't have to necessarily open it first to go pull one of those open. So yet, again, one less click, in the world of having to click around, because normally you would have to open up Excel and then go to either the recents on the left or go to File and then go to Open, and then you'll see the recents there. So they've really built in some pieces here that are really functional. So here's my most recents there in the Word. So if I click the Word to open, you'll see the difference between here, I see my recents, and here, my recents, right? So I'll pull it up here. So you got easy enough access to each of those things, and I'll go as far as even recents with here. So you got, terminal server connections you've gone to in project. So those are all there, and again, they try to keep that consistent, right? So if I'm going to go over to my Excel, I don't want to do that. Hold on one second. I didn't want to just hover over this. And here's my recents here. So it's available to you in all those same locations, which is kind of nice to see that same consistent behavior in both the taskbar, the start menu, and actually in the application. So kind of a nice thing. All right. Other cool things that are out there, I have it on my desktop. I'm going to put it on the center so you can see it a little better. You may have used this in Windows 8 or 8.1. It's called God Mode, and it's really just a stronger version of the control panel. And your IT folks may or may not lock this down, but it's basically you name a folder, you put a folder in your desktop called God Mode, and then away you go. You can point into all these pieces right here. And it just gives you a little bit deeper drilling, and it also just kind of coordinates them in a spot that you've already done. None of these like Bluetooth devices, these are all accessible through the normal control panel, but some of these pieces are just easier to get at this level instead. So it's just a folder that's called God Mode, and you put it on your desktop, and The name of the folder is the critical piece. It's God mode with a long GUID, and you can go look for it, search for anywhere. I mean, you can search for God mode. It tells you here's the folder name. But it does kind of put all the things in one spot, so it's kind of nice how it kind of puts it all into a spot where you can kind of get hold of it in one place. So let's see here. I showed you the maps. Command prompt. For those that are command prompt users, we need to have a text file. We'll create a text file here on the desktop here first. And we'll just make something. Let's just go with, you picked up some really cool thing you learned, from somebody. You want to see how that works. Okay, well, there's going to be more to it than obviously than that use, obviously. But I want to copy that. So if I go up here and I bring up my command prompt, I always go into admin mode. I mean, I know some don't. The old days, you'd have to go up here and go to edit and then paste. Okay, so you see there's my net use I put in there. Okay, that works. But I could also, because it now supports it and never did, I know it sounds like a very trivial thing, it now supports the keyboard commands. You didn't see me do it, but I did Control V, and that actually drops it in as well. Obviously, if you click it, it does support that as well. So some of those that are the hardcore command prompt users know that if you would just click it, it means paste. And so it's funny. I have to tell it what I want to net use, but that's okay. So the idea though is the copy and paste from any text. So if you find a great PowerShell command and you want to paste it in, it's very easy to paste in now. Where this was a little bit more difficult, I think, in the old days, the command prompt. So little thing for those that are the hardcore command prompt folks. No, we're not going to say that. Let's see here, settings, things we talked about. I want to talk just a little bit about the Insiders program and then some deployment tools that are out there. And I think we'll open for questions because we want to have just a little bit of time at the end for questions. So I talked in the beginning about the Insiders program, and the key for the Insiders program, and I think this will be part of the our response on the emails here as we have follow-ups as to hyperlinks you can go to. But this is a spot you should go to, and you should take a look and decide if this is right for you. But what folks are using and what our customers are using, and what other some of our coworkers are using, is the Insiders program as a testing platform for their own applications going forward. So if you want to know if your stuff is going to work with Windows 10, the days of virtualization now has made that very very reasonable to be able to do. You go open up a Hyper-V VM, and I guess I'll show you that the same VM stuff works here just as you'd expect it would. You would create a Windows 10 VM. You just bring up Windows 10 Hyper-V of the Insiders program version of the Hyper-V image, which you will get for free as an Insiders member. You bring that Windows 10 image up and you load your application on there and see how it behaves. Costs you nothing, and you get a chance to see what the current build is of Windows 10 on your application. And what they really want from you is they want you to give them information as to how it's working with apps you've got that you've built out there or apps you're accessing. Whether or not there's apps you built or apps you're accessing, they want to know if it's working or not. So then you have the ability at that point, and you really have kind of a responsibility as a member of this to let Microsoft know, hey, it doesn't work when I do this. Hey, it doesn't work when I do this. This is what I'm experiencing when I do this with whatever app it happens to be, whether it's your own app or not. But it gives you the ability then to test it, and it takes such a pain away from the end users in your organization if you have that ability to test before you go and deploy. So we've been testing, for us for quite some time now. We're in the midst of deploying. We're doing a soft deploy for our users. So every time a user gets a new machine, we're putting them on Windows 10, and then whenever they have a problem with their machine that we feel that it's just as easy to go ahead and install Windows 10 on it, we're going to go that route as well. So, and for the most part, you're doing an install in place, not a wipe install, and that's that's one that you're going to hear a little bit about when you start going down that path. But the in-place install has been pretty successful for us. We've had a few issues here and there early, but since then it's been a little more of a clean move, and the users on the other side. Yesterday I just actually helped someone move from Windows 8 to 10, and she really didn't notice anything that was strange or odd that she just couldn't handle. As a matter of fact, I did no additional training, and that's kind of nice when you're able to go to that point. And I know Windows 8 to 10 is really going to require that, but I will say my dad, he pushed the button on the should I upgrade or not. And with on the personal side, you get that question and you can suppress it, but he pushed the button, of course, and installed it, and he was all worried that he wasn't going to know where anything was, and he said, well, where's the start menu? I said, well, it's in the same spot in the lower left-hand corner, and sure enough, he hits and he goes, well, that's the same, and I'm like, yes, it is, as a matter of fact. And so, I think in the 10 minutes that he asked me a couple questions on where things were, he already knew where they were already, and I was kind of watching them on a remote session, and it didn't matter actually after it was all said and done. It didn't matter at all. He was fully functional within a couple minutes. He just needed to be reassured that it really isn't any different. But I think once your users start digging in, the Insiders program is a great way for you to test if you haven't started testing, is to bring them up in a Hyper-V VM and test all of your applications that you normally would use, and all your users and the roles that they sit in, what they would use each day, and see how they behave. And I think you'll find very quickly that you're closer to being able to deploy than you thought. So you really should consider joining that. And again, this is an ongoing thing. This is not you're waiting for the next version. Microsoft has made it pretty clear that they're going to continue with this version of Windows, and they're not going to keep on renaming it. They may change their mind on that, of course, but you're going to get the current build each time there's a build release. They notify you, and they'll ask for your feedback. So, and your feedback does matter because they make changes. These changes down here came from feedback from users. Some of the stuff was not in here. The project was not in here. Some of the quiet hours was not in here. Some of those pieces just weren't in there because people afterwards, after they started using it, said that's what we'd like, and here's a suggestion. They take them. So it's a great thing. And the next step is to talk about, well, when are we ready to deploy? So as you're getting into deployment, I will tell you right now, I'll bring it back to slides here, and we'll just leave the slides at this stage right here. It doesn't really matter. So the Insiders program, that's the address to it, and we'll also make sure that that's available to our customers and the folks in this call. But when you get down to the deployment level, if you feel like you got a good handle on it yourself, take a look at, a test environment that you want to deploy to first, make sure those users can work, test it with the Insiders program's versions of the Windows 10, and then either, if you're a System Center customer, you already know how to deploy your software out there. If you need help, we have an IT team on Internet BMI that can help you. You can also use the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, which is one of the things that they've been kind of ramping up and tweaking a little bit to make it a little bit more friendly in the Windows 10 world, and that's another option you've got, or other imaging tools that you're using today. But our IT team can help you if you need help, or if you've got your own IT team in place, look at deployment options, because I will tell you this, is that as we move forward, the Windows 10 experience is going to be more and more accepted, I think, by users. And as you can tell, when the rollout happened, you didn't get the big news flash about how horrible it was going. And the reason why they didn't have that is because you had several million people that already tested it for a good 1.5 to 2 years before they even deployed it. So the Insiders program is a big deal, and Microsoft, they wanted this thing to roll out cleanly, and they were very cautious about how they did it, and I think they did it right, and it's a good thing. I think we're all benefiting by it. So with that, I'll just tell you right now, you can contact me at this email address. You can contact us at our main number on our main contact information. If you're looking for information about deployment of Windows 10 or any kind of questions on the IT side of things in terms of your infrastructure, Fred Limmer is our IT practice manager, and he would be more than willing to help get you more information or help you in a deployment plan. So with that, Kim, I'm going to press it back to you and say, guessing we have a few questions out there, so I'd like to make sure we have the stage open for that.
Yes, thank you so much. Great job. So much to get excited about. And I came back from the DOS days. I was from the green screen days. How do you like that? Matter of fact, I started before IBM had PCs. That's how old I am. All right, here we go. Sandra's got one. It says, will the Alt-Control-Delete still work? Is there a cutoff date for Windows 10 to be a free download? Good questions.
Okay, so two questions that are out there. The first one is the classic three-finger salute to Control-Alt-Delete still out there? Yes, it is. So if I hit Control-Delete, it's just the same. It would bring me up to the logout screen. I'm not going to pull it up here because I don't know what it's going to do on this GoToMeeting. I got a feeling I might turn the meeting off, which I don't want to do. So, but Control-Alt-Delete is still fully functional. And actually, there are the Windows commands. There's still a page that gives you all the current Windows commands. You know, the Alt-Tab, the window R. The window R is the same. That does the same thing. Brings up the Run command. So those are all still out there. So, but those Windows commands are available as well. And then the second question was, how long before that that free Windows download is good? Through, I believe, for the Pro, it was released on July 29th of 2015, so I believe it's July 29th, 2016 is their official date when you can pull the free one down. So you kind of decision before then. But really, I will say this though, is if you're, and just to go one step further, that if you're really a business customer, you're really going to probably want to go the route of enterprise, and in which case you're just going to buy the licensing anyway on it. And that's, you can talk to whoever your Microsoft licensing person is, if it's with our company or if it's with someone else, they can help you get the right licensing for it.
Okay. Here's one a little bit off topic, but still important here. It is not quite hitting the current topic, but is it possible to have dual monitor setup for Surface Pro?
I'm running my Surface Pro right now on just my Surface monitor and a second monitor. However, if you used the docking station that was currently on your machine, you could run it that way, because you have one obviously there, and then you can run a second one through the video on the HDMI, the mini display port. But what I find other people are doing, this is probably more common, is using like a different kind of a hub. Like if you use the current Surface Pro 4 hub, which does work with the Surface Pro 3s and down actually, it has two mini display ports on it, and you can run it through that way. And then there's also obviously the option of, if you had a USB, and I know this sounds crazy, either a USB monitor, which is more common than or some of you may not know, but also you have the option of running this. There's a lot of these little adapters that'll run like it's a USB conversion to whatever media you're going out to, if it's HDMI or DVI. So you can run multiple monitors in that. We do have some users that run 4, and it's more screen than I can look at, but it's certainly available.
All right, good questions. Let's see here. When will we be required to change to Windows 10? What is the window of opportunity there?
Well, there's not really ever a requirement to just keep on retiring operating systems. So XP retired recently. The next one that they'll go after obviously will be Windows 7. But it seems like it's going to be a little while yet. The adoption rate on Windows 10 has been pretty high. But I think you'll find people that are already in Windows 8 will quickly go to that. And they did try to make it very easy to go from 7 to 10 as well. But really, the driving factor there is as they retire another OS, and I don't have the answer as to when they're going to retire 7. I haven't seen that date out there yet.
Yep. All right, excellent. Okay, IE versus the Edge. What is the difference?
Really, the difference is IE is the same IE that you've been using as it's been growing over the years. Edge kind of takes away a lot of the, they don't, instead of Edge, they don't have a lot of the plugins by default. They're not putting in the Flash plugin. They're not putting the PDF reader plugin. They're trying to keep it very clean of plugins, more like what you'd expect with with Chrome. That was one of the things as well. They try to make it a little bit cleaner. Beyond that, there's really you know, there's not that much difference except for Edge is now adding some of the more modern features that are the HTML5 layer features, you know, where you can do like we showed you the notes on top of. And that's really, you know, kind of where it's heading. So you're going to see as more things come out in HTML5, you know, Edge is going to be probably the browser that'll take advantage of more of those pieces just because it's built on that. So
it's all got to do some marketing, right? Always have to have change. Beth asked the questions, what is the page for Windows keystroke shortcuts, page or link?
Oh, we can actually send, we're sending out a, we are sending out at the end of this thing, Kim, right? We're sending out some sort of follow-up, right?
Yep.
So I'll make sure that we include in that follow-up the Insiders program, and then also the link to that, to the shortcuts of all the Windows command keys.
Excellent. I think we're going to add that also to our next newsletter. That's really good information.
Yeah, it's always good to have the updated one. And there's a spot where you can actually go, and it's the Microsoft one. So, and they actually routinely update it and change it a little bit. Like for instance, you know, in the version of Windows 10 that was released in July, they still had this game mode thing where you go Windows G and it would bring up the game mode. Well, they kind of removed that in the November one, and I was trying to actually run that in December for some reason. I was trying to do a demo, and I'm like, oh goodness, that's gone. So they do update it. They do take some things off occasionally, and that was just one that was, they folded it into, for those of you that are Xbox users, they folded it into the Xbox app that's on your Windows 10 if you have your Xbox connected.
All right, sounds good. Here's someone that knows a little bit about Windows 10, and they said that Edge doesn't support Java. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and that's again, that's another one of those plugins they're trying to keep it separate and clean, which is again why they kept IE11 alive. They want to keep IE11 alive for those users that need those other functions, but they're trying to keep Edge clean.
Excellent. Well, those are all the questions that I've got, but there's also some thank yous. So thank you, Joe, very much. And again, contact information will follow, and we'll have a copy of this recording emailed out to you with a hyperlink over to YouTube so that you can share it with other people in the office. Valuable information, very timely. Thank you so much, Joe. Appreciate it. Great talents. Thank you. And everybody, have a great day. Thanks, Joe.